Hey everyone, welcome back to Soulbound Stories, where we share true stories that touch the heart and remind us of the power of kindness. Today's story is about a Hell's Angel who dined alone on Christmas Eve, thinking no one noticed or cared, until a single mother waitress changed everything. Stick around, because this story will show you how one small act can completely change a life. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Share this video with someone who needs hope, and leave a comment about what touched you the most. Let's get started. The diner was nearly empty that Christmas Eve. The kind of night where the only light came from the flickering neon sign outside and the soft glow of a few overhead bulbs. The air smelled of fried food, coffee, and a hint of pine from a tiny, neglected Christmas tree in the corner. He walked in slowly, boots scraping the floor with a hollow echo. Leather jacket heavy across his broad shoulders. Patches adorned his jacket, worn and faded, telling stories of roads traveled, battles fought, and nights survived. He scanned the room, looking for a booth where he could sit unnoticed, far from the faint chatter of the few remaining patrons. The waitress glanced at him once, her expression cautious but polite. Other diners stiffened, moving slightly away, as if instinctively aware of the weight of his presence. He chose a booth near the window, back to the wall, his hands rough and calloused resting on the worn wood table. He ordered black coffee and a simple meal. Nothing fancy, nothing that required conversation. He ate slowly, chewing each bite with deliberate care, listening to the faint hum of carols on the radio. The world outside was quiet. Snow beginning to fall in thin, delicate layers, covering the streets in a soft, cold white. He told himself he preferred it this way, that silence was freedom. But the empty seat across from him whispered a different truth, one he refused to acknowledge. She approached his table carrying a tray, blonde hair pulled back loosely, a few strands falling across her tired but alert eyes. She had the posture of someone used to carrying more than her share of the world, shoulders slightly stooped but determined. She asked quietly if everything was all right, her tone gentle, free of the curiosity or fear that others carried. He nodded, hesitant, but did not speak. There was something about her presence that made the air less heavy, that pulled at memories he had long buried. She lingered just enough for him to notice her small silver necklace, a subtle shimmer catching the dim light, and the slight tremor in her hand as she adjusted her apron. Her voice broke the monotony, speaking softly about her son waiting at home with her sister, about Santa Claus and small, fleeting hopes. There was a vulnerability there, an openness he hadn't encountered in years. He listened, unsure why it mattered, unsure why her words stirred something that had long been dormant. The act of her noticing him, of acknowledging his presence without began to chip away at the walls he had built around himself. When she returned with the check, she placed a small candy cane beside it, a simple gesture laden with kindness. "On the house," she said, with a smile that did not hide the exhaustion in her eyes. He stared at the candy cane, the gesture pulling memories of holidays long past, of families that once were, and of warmth he thought he had lost forever. He fumbled with his wallet, leaving a tip far larger than the meal, insisting it was not too much. She shook her head, trying to refuse, but he insisted it was for her child, for the spirit of Christmas that she still carried despite everything. He left the diner, the snow now falling more heavily, coating the streets in silence. She watched him go, eyes shining, realizing that in this brief encounter, two lives had intersected in a way neither expected. For the first time in a long while, he felt seen, acknowledged, and inexplicably lighter. The world outside remained cold, but inside him, something had shifted. An ember rekindled by an act of unexpected kindness. Years later, he would recall that night with a clarity that surprised him, the memory vivid against the passage of time. The diner no longer stood, streets had changed, and faces had faded from memory. Yet the impact of a single act of compassion remained unbroken. That Christmas Eve, a man hardened by life and a woman, quietly struggling, had crossed paths in a fleeting moment, reminding each other of what it meant to be human. It was a night defined not by danger or notoriety, but by a simple, profound connection. In the silent exchange of understanding, in the acknowledgement of shared loneliness and fleeting hope, both were reminded that even in the harshest winters, warmth could be found. A meal shared, a kind gesture, and the unspoken recognition of each other's humanity created a memory neither would ever forget. The world continued its relentless pace, but for that night, two souls found a rare, quiet solace in each other's presence. He walked out into the night, the cold biting through his leather jacket, snowflakes landing on his broad shoulders and melting instantly. Every step crunching against the frozen pavement felt heavier than the last, yet lighter in a way he couldn't explain. The candy cane, small and simple, still lingered in his mind, a symbol of something he thought he had lost long ago. He walked past familiar streets, the empty storefronts, the dim streetlights reflecting off the snow. And for the first time in years, he felt a strange sense of hope mingled with nostalgia. The city, so often cold and unforgiving, felt almost tender tonight. Back in the diner, she cleared the last of the plates, her movements practiced but slower, reflective. She couldn't stop thinking about the men who had dined alone. The weight in his eyes, and the quiet dignity. She wondered if he had someone waiting for him, someone who cared, or if he was truly alone in the world. Her heart ached, not for pity, but for the realization that sometimes the strongest people carried the heaviest burdens. She glanced out the window at the falling snow, imagining him walking alone, yet somehow not entirely lonely. She felt a strange connection, fleeting yet undeniable, as if that brief encounter had left a mark on both their souls. Days passed, yet the memory of that night stayed with him. He found himself returning to the diner, sometimes during the day, sometimes late at night, hoping for another glimpse of the woman who had shown him such simple, unassuming kindness. Each time he entered, he noticed her before anyone else, her presence grounding him in a way he hadn't realized he needed. She greeted him with a nod or a faint smile, small gestures that carried a depth of understanding and warmth. Slowly, conversation began to bloom between them. Cautious at first, then more genuine. He learned her son's name, the struggles she faced, and the dreams she still held close despite the weight of single parenthood. In return, she learned fragments of his life on the road, the losses he had endured, and the walls he had built around his heart. Christmas turned into winter, and winter into spring. Their paths continued to cross, each meeting strengthening the bond that had begun on that quiet night. The diner remained their backdrop, the little haven where worlds collided, blending the harshness of life with the softness of human connection. He found himself looking forward to those interactions, and slowly, unknowingly, he allowed himself to care again. She, too, found comfort in his presence, in the sense of security and understanding he brought. Their relationship, built not on romance or grand gestures but on shared humanity, became a lifeline for both of them. One evening, months later, he brought a small bouquet of wildflowers, the kind she loved but never allowed herself to buy. She accepted them with surprise and gratitude, realizing how deeply he had touched her life. In that moment, neither of them needed words to understand the significance of their connection. It was a reminder that even the most hardened hearts could soften, even in the darkest winters, if met with patience, kindness, and recognition. Years would pass, roads would take him far and wide, and the diner might change hands or close entirely. But that Christmas Eve would remain a turning point. A single act of empathy, a small candy cane, and a brief human connection had set off a chain of moments that reshaped two lives. He learned that vulnerability was not weakness, and she learned that compassion could be a quiet, transformative force. And in the end, both were reminded that even the loneliest souls could find light when someone chose to see them. That night, rekindle the fire
A Hell's
inside.
Angel
Even
dining
improving
alone
discovered that
can
the warmth
change
of a
everything.
stranger's heart could